All right, hello everyone. Welcome back. It's that time of the week. It is time for some more One Hub racing. Today we arrive at Suzuka in Japan for round 3 of this season 22 championship. I am your commentator Moore, and joined alongside me is Tom Carnes. And well, are you looking forward to yet another round of this P2 tier championship?
Absolutely more, and what better place to do it than at the land of the rising sun in Japan at Suzuka. It's one of the most nostalgic circuits, I have to say, for any racing driver. In fact, if you were born around my generation, I mean, I'm 27 years of age, if you're sort of around that age bracket, you would definitely know that Suzuka is definitely one of those from your childhood memories, especially for a Japanese supporter. But for the purpose of tonight, we are seeing 18 drivers within the P2 tier of One Hub Racing tackle this circuit for 18 minutes, qualifying to determine the grid for the 27-lap race we've got later on. And we've got Axlock, who is out on circuit, the man who finished second last week in Portimao, championship leader, of course, by 3 points over Luki, who won last week in Portugal. So can Axlock continue his consistent start to the season? He is on his outlap at the moment, so we've got time to sort of maybe run down exactly what happened in last week. We saw quite a different result to what we were anticipating, because Delta Hunter, who won in China the week before, he had a time to forget in Portugal, it has to be said.
Yeah, definitely. He really struggled there, scoring barely any points for his championship hopes. And the likes of Axlock and I think Speed Josh brought it home in P2 that round, if I'm not mistaken. So Axlock and Speed Josh both getting onto the podiums 2 times in 2 rounds, and are looking to be the 2 main championship contenders. But obviously Delta Hunter, one bad race doesn't mean that this championship is over for him. He's still got plenty of time to make up the championship point difference between himself and his teammate. And well, this could be a good place to start. Currently in the pit lane waiting to start his lap time, as his teammate is out setting a lap. But yeah, Speed Josh is also another big hitter in this championship. I think he's finished P2 twice now in both of the rounds, so keeping it nice and consistent for himself. And he scored some decent points. And obviously Luki scoring out the win back in Portugal. So that was obviously a great result for him, and possibly a sign of things to come. He'll be hoping to carry that momentum into this Japanese Grand Prix, where he arrives once again in the Williams car. But yeah, I think Luki will be looking to keep up the good form, make sure he tries to get up into those top positions again. But the likes of Delta Hunter is going to have to try and bounce back now. He's obviously lost a little bit of confidence after that round, maybe a track that he wasn't very strong at. And let's hope he can definitely do better here in Japan. But as things stand, Speed Josh is currently on a lap time coming through the first sector now, as we see the first lap time of the session set by the Alfa Romeo of Colin R. Mason. He goes to a 29.6. And well, in this P2 tier, I think we can definitely expect a time or two in those crucial 1 minute 28 seconds. And well, let's see if Speed Josh can get close to those 1 minute 28. He's currently coming out of turn 11 into turn 12, and now this double left-hander of Spoon, a very tricky one to get right. Can't touch that curb on the inside, using the full width of the track on the exit of turn 13, and doing so again on the exit of turn 14, because it has to set you up nicely for this very long back straight. No DRS, of course, because of 130R, which comes up right now. Flat out turn, taken in 8th gear in these modern day Formula 1 cars. And then the final chicane of turns 16 and 17, and a very, very tricky downhill traction zone for the drivers to get used to. But Speed Josh navigating his way through, he comes across the line to set a 1:29.8, just 2/10 off of Colin R. Mason's time. But remember, obviously, the 2-stop rule in One Hub Racing is a thing that is in place. So I think a couple of drivers who are out on mediums, such as Speed Kai, who did the exact same thing last week, could possibly be saving a set of soft compound tires for the race. And well, the drivers who do save a set of soft compound tires for the race, how do you think that could benefit them in the Grand Prix itself?
Well, if you start on the medium tyre, which is the optimum tyre, I would say, of what drivers would rather go for. I suppose if you leave the soft tyre towards the end, the benefit of that, as opposed to using that at the beginning of the race, is you're not having to put as much load into it when you're on a lighter fuel load. You're not having to put as much load into the tyre going through the corners, if you see where I'm coming from. I mean, from a driver's experience, it's more beneficial to get the benefit out of the soft tyre when you are going towards the end of the race than you would do at the beginning. But yeah, there'll be a difference in strategies, I would expect. I'm not sure how many are going to go for the hard compound. I think, given how many laps there are, I would say that you ought to be trying a medium, soft, soft. Ideally, maybe soft, medium, soft, depending on the track position that you gain. And it could also depend on safety cars, because safety cars around Suzuka on this game can be quite frequent, as we have seen a lot of accidents here in the past, perhaps in multiple different leagues, maybe not just in One Up Racing, but elsewhere as well. But yeah, I think we're going to be in for an intriguing race later on. We could even see a third different race winner this season. Delta Hunter won in China 2 weeks ago. 7 days after that, it proved to be Luki that came out on top in Portugal. So could we get a third different winner, I wonder? Well, we can tell you that Colin's gone fastest at the moment, 129.6, nearly a couple of tenths faster than what Josh has posted. Well, Speedcar makes it 2 Ferraris in the top 3 at the moment, but we've still got plenty of drivers who have still yet to post a lap time. Futol has just gone into the pit lane as he has abandoned the lap he was going to set. We've got Peru who's just about to start a lap now, so he could well be the next driver to look at. Axlock is closing in behind, so he's about to start a lap as the session goes on. It's worth mentioning more about the engine wear, because a driver has a certain number of laps on a power unit before they have to change it, which will result in a back of the grid penalty for whichever race they take that new engine.
Yeah, definitely. That's another aspect here. In One Hub Racing, your engine collects wear over time, which is recorded by the tier coordinators. It takes into account how many laps you've done on with your engine in qualifying and in the Grand Prix itself. And the more laps you do, the closer it gets to running out. And if your engine actually gets to 0% wear during a Grand Prix, you will get disqualified from the race. So drivers have to pick when are they going to take that engine penalty, which acts like a bit of a qualifying ban, where they just have to retire from the session and start from the back of the grid. And the way the engine penalties are set out, usually you only need 2 engines in a season. You won't really be needing much more than that. So they'll have to take 1 engine penalty per season, and usually taken during the middle part of the season or towards the end of the season. But it's quite a strategical aspect that's added to the league racing itself, because the drivers have to pick, well, which circuit do I want to use it at? Do I want to use it at a circuit that I'm weak at, that I'm strong at, that's easy to overtake at? There's a lot of different factors that go into that decision making, but these drivers thankfully won't have to be thinking about it for a few weeks. I expect to see a couple of engine penalties coming in at around possibly next round, or round 5 or 6 is when most of the engine penalties start to come in. But yeah, these drivers, it's something they definitely have to take into account when looking forward to the next rounds and thinking about their championship battle. But as we progress further into the qualifying session, we currently have Axlock, who is just at a 29.7, and the third man to set a 1 minute 29, along with Speed Josh and Colin R. Mason. A lot of drivers yet to set lap times, though, one of which is the Red Bull driver of Delta Hunter, who is currently coming out of the final turn of turn 18. So let's ride on board for an entire lap of this Japanese circuit. It's a very long pit straight that brings you down with DRS wide open into turn 1. Hit an early apex here, carry a bit of the speed while also braking down to 4th gear, and you can see getting on the power just a little bit too early there. That's caused him a bit of wheel spin, and he's lost control of the rear end. He's hit into the wall, and that is going to be a second failed attempt at a lap time there from the Red Bull driver of Delta Hunter. So he seems to be struggling ever since the start of Portugal qualifying, all the way up until now even, as he is not got a lap time on the board, and there's only about 7 minutes left to go, 7.5 minutes left to go in the session. So with him not having set a lap time yet, how do you think that's going to affect him for the rest of the session?
When you have a spin like that, it can knock your confidence a little bit, and it makes you think the next time you have to go through that corner, you have to go through it more cautiously than you would have liked to have done. Because the thing is, you want to get an absolute blinder of a lap round here in Suzuka. There's 18 turns. It's the only circuit on the calendar that overlaps. It's clockwise as well, so the left front takes more of a beating than the right. There's a lot to consider, because some of the corners are banked corners or corners that are on a gradient. So you have to bear that in mind when you're trying to tackle them, because you don't want to take too tight of a line through there, and you don't want to run too wide either. I was just watching Waitsy as well, because he had a spin at the S's and he broke his front wing as he hit the wall. So that'll be him back into the pits at the end of the lap he's on at the moment to get a new front wing fitted on. But he'll have wasted some tyre life on that set of soft tyres, so he's got some work to do between now and the checkered flag. Lukey's on a lap as well, the last week's race winner in Portimao, so he could well be one to watch as he comes down the banking towards Spoon Curve. It's quite a tricky one to get right, actually, because it's so easy to run wide. It's almost like a blind corner, if that makes sense, because you're having to almost guess where the curve is as you turn the car in, depending on how much temperature you've managed to generate in those tyres as you go through such a fast corner like that one. It's just gone through 130R now as you're coming towards the Casio Triangle chicane. Brakes down to second gear, takes too tight of a line, goes over the curb too much, and Lukey will have to go back into the pit lane. He may as well get another set of tyres on. But yeah, we've seen a number of drivers just pushing a little bit too hard and exceeding track limits on this track, and yeah, that's going to leave themselves with quite a bit to do. As Futel is on some form of lap, I believe, but he's well off the pace, so we'll come away from him. Colin's gone to the top though. Well, he was, but he's managed to extend the margin between him and J. Luke in P2. The gap is over 2.5 tenths of a second. So Colin, on form so far in this qualifying session, looking at his performances so far this season, he has finished 5th in both races, which has shown that he's got what it takes to compete for the title this season. He's 5th overall in the championship standings, 11 points off the top. You get 20 points for a race win in one hub racing, plus 1 point if you set the fastest lap outside the top 10 or within inside the top 10, whichever of the two. As J. Luke moves out of the way, there's an Aston Martin coming up behind him. That'll be Gazzaman, because he's the only Aston Martin driver in this field. So we'll see how he's getting on as he approaches the start-finish line. It won't be an amazing lap, but it's good enough to put him up to P8 ahead of Jamie Matt. So going back to what we're saying about Colin, in terms of his qualifying, I think he's qualifying, both times in the top 10 so far this season, if I remember correctly, looking back on his performances in Portimao. So yeah, Colin qualified 4th in Portimao, and in China, he qualified, I think, outside the top 10. I'm looking at the wrong ones here. There you go, I've got it up. So it's P6 he qualified. So he's doing a much better job than expected, I would say, is Colin, as he is continuing to set the pace out on circuit. Just noticed that Futel has retired from the session, so he will start from the back of the grid. Evil Dragon's out on circuit now on a much better lap so far than he did so before. So you might want to look at him as he comes down the back straight towards 130R.
Yeah, he's now coming into 130R, 5 tenths up on his 31.8. He'll be looking to get into those 1 minute 30s. Obviously, didn't set the best first lap time so far of a 1:31.8. You can see really struggling there through the Casio chicane. And across the line, he just about improves by a tenth, but really struggling for pace at this circuit is Evil Dragon, who is currently 2.3 seconds off of the pace. So obviously just not a track that he's very suited to. But Delta Hunter is about to start a lap time, And well, let's hope third time is the charm with the Red Bull driver, who still has not got a lap time set in this session. And this is most likely, with only 3 minutes left to go, going to be his final lap time of the session. It definitely will be his final lap time with fresh tyres. Into turn 1, can he get it better this time? You can see getting as close to that curb on the right hand side, not spinning on the exit this time, and keeping the car stable through the S section, trying to carry the speed as much as he can. A little bit of difficulty there with the gearing, shifting from 5th to 6th back to 5th. But now we make our way out of turn 7 and into the middle sector. And let's see how well he can take this, as he's obviously been struggling quite a lot in this session. So he really needs to find the pace in these corners and make this, well, almost a one-shot qualifying session lap time work for him now. Coming out of the turn 11 hairpin and into turn 12. He's only got a few more turns to go, but some of the hardest turns on this track are the turn 13 and 14 that we're now coming up to. And into here, it gets really close to that entry curb, not touching it at all though, because you really don't want to do that, unsettling the car, as do a lot of curbs on this Formula 1 22 game. But now he's just got the final chicane and the exit of turn 18 to go. So can he possibly set a good lap time here? He wants to try and find himself into the 1 minute 29s if he can, out of the final turn of turn 18 now. A tight line to the line, and can he get into the 29s? Yes, he can, just about. It's a 29.9 for the Red Bull driver as he places his Red Bull into P6. Colin Mason now starting his lap time. He's been doing really well in the qualifying session so far, and possibly on for a first pole position of the season. Let's see if he can do just that into turn 2 now. And a very tricky S section. How much curb are you willing to take? How big is the risk and the reward of each and every turn? It's very tricky to place your car correctly going through that initial first sector. But he's made his way through it now, and he is 5/100ths up on his time. That's already 3/10 faster than J-Luke's time. But coming out of turn 9 now, he gets on the power too early, was trying to push the limits as hard as possible, and he's just pushed a bit too hard as he spun out of turn 9. That is going to cause him to abandon this lap time. J-Luke is on a lap time. He is coming through turn 13 and 14, and we're going to be able to see his sector split as he comes onto the back straight now. Is he improving on his time? But not only does he have to improve, he has to improve by about 3/10 to go for that pole position time of a 29.4. But he is almost half a second up on his 29.7. He has a great opportunity now to battle for pole position in this Japanese qualifying session. Out of the final turn of turn 18, close and tight to the line. What kind of time can he set? It's a 29.1, close to the 28, but 3/10 clear of Colin R. Mason's time. He's put it on provisional pole position, and by quite some margin. Axlock is coming through the first sector. He's a 10.5 up on his time, and he's got to make sure that with pinpoint accuracy, he is able to get his car through the final 2 sectors if he wants to challenge for pole position. He is currently 6/10 off of J-Luke's 29.1. He's going to need absolutely massive improvement from these final few turns now. Lukey actually retiring from the session there. He has not been able to set a lap time, and last week's race winner will be starting from the very back of the grid in this Japanese qualifying session. Axlock currently on the back straight and making his way to 130R. He is improving by 4/10, but that is not going to be enough so far to catch up to J-Luke's time. He has 3 more turns to go. Through the chicane he comes, and the final turn of turn 18, tight to the line. What kind of time can he set? Can he get close as he comes across the line to 29.3, which places him P3 as Kai has gone to P2. Just 5/100ths off of J-Luke's time. He has been able to set a 29.2, and the Ferrari driver has put it on the front row of the grid. Colin R. Mason qualifying P4 with Speed Josh rounding out the top 5, and it's not been a good weekend and a good qualifying session once again for Delta Hunter, who finds himself down in P8 and out of that top 3, and the most crucial battle in the field for this championship. But wow, J-Luke on pole position. He's done exactly what he was able to do last week, and he's got his second consecutive pole position.
He has, and what's amazing about it is that he's not set a purple sector in any of the three sectors. They were all, well, it was Axock in Sector 1, Delta Hunter in Sector 2, and Colin in Sector 3. J-Luke has not had a purple sector despite all of what he's put together to combine the whole lap to get his pole position. So very well done to J-Luke, who qualifies on pole position for the Japanese Grand Prix. Speedkai will join him on the front row next to him. Then we've got Axlock and Colin making up the second row. Josh and Casper are on row 3, followed by Kamkay Mum and Delta Hunter on row 4. Peru and Waitsy round out the top 10. Gazaman and Jamie Met are alongside each other on row 6, followed by Ols and Jordan. Evil Dragon, the last of the drivers to a set lap time, leaving Aero Specialist, Futile, and last week's winner, Lukey, at the back of the grid. And yeah, it's a brilliant qualifying session. Less than 0.8 of a second separating the top 8. Just over 0.3 of a second separating the top 4. That was a brilliant end to the qualifying session. And now, whilst we wait for the race to begin, it's time to take a moment to mention our sponsors and partners of One Hub Racing. We begin with Next Level Racing, who sponsor the league by providing its prizes. Pure Sim Gear, who sponsor the league by providing a new product not launched yet to the driver with the most podiums. Gamergoo, who sponsor the league by providing Gamergoo samples to the trophy winners. Azatec Sim Sports, who sponsor the league by providing a multitude of prizes with different ways to win them. The driver with the most fast starts win a set of Forte pedals, and the driver with the shortest combined qualifying time wins a set of Forte pedals and boots. On to our partners, Vespertine, who partner One Hub Racing with the support of the official Aperol. ERT, who support the Go and Get Tough Award and lead trophies. And finally, SimGrid, who power One Hub Racing with running the seasons through their community and platform. So, in terms of the rivalries, actually, Delta Hunter managed to answer a question in relation to his non-points finish in Portimao. What will he think about doing differently in Japan in order to secure a strong finish? And this is what he had to say. First of all, I'm going to try and keep my car on track when exiting the pit lane. I'll probably need to focus on myself and get in my own rhythm without getting too disrupted by the cars around me. The season is still long and a lot can still happen. It's worth mentioning, actually, the reason why he lost any chance of the victory was because of that pit exit error after he made what was scheduled to be his last stop, where he got the power down too soon after he deactivated the pit lane speed limiter, dropped it, hit the wall, damaged the front wing, and he had to make another stop, which put him out of the running of any points.
Yeah, and obviously after that struggle in Portugal and now a little bit of a struggle in qualifying, let's hope that he can finally find that form that he once had all the way back in China 2 weeks ago and put it into this Japanese Grand Prix effort here, as the drivers are now ready for the race start. Or not the race start, sorry, there's a formation lap now, as it looks like we've brought back the formation lap, which gives us a little bit more time to talk. And one thing we are able to talk about is the strategy, which is what we used to do back in the day when we actually had a formation lap and it wasn't bugged. Looks like we're returning to our way. So let's look at the tyre strategies for a lot of the drivers. J-Luke on pole position, deciding to start on the medium compounded tyres. Obviously, after using a lot of his soft compound of tyres in the qualifying session, deciding to start on the mediums, as I think he's going to have to use a worn set of softs in this race and maybe another set of mediums, but we'll have to see. And alongside him on the front row of the grid, Speed Kai, also starting on the medium compounded tyres. Then a couple places back, Axlock is the top man on the soft compounded tyres, so he's deciding to go a little bit more aggressive in this race start. He's going to try and make up those early positions and possibly take the race lead in the first few laps. Colin R. Mason, Speed, Josh, Casper and Kamkay all following him on the same starting compound. So we'll have to see how those softs come into play. You can see a lot of drivers towards the back, such as Evil Dragon, Aero Specialist, Futile Rydog, and last week's race winner Lukey, all starting on the soft compound tyre. Probably a good strategy for them, as they'll be wanting to make up positions early on after not having the best of qualifying sessions. And there's quite an even split of soft compound tyre runners and medium compound tyre runners. Obviously, only that's 8 medium runners for the starting grid, and then 10 soft runners. So yeah, there's a little more soft compound tire runners in the grid, but I think that midfield is going to be quite a crucial area because they've decided they're in a midfield, they're in a decent position. If they go for strategy over initial pace, it's really going to help them in the long run. So it's going to be interesting to see how all these different strategies play out. I think we're going to see the soft compound tire runners, especially towards the back, make up a lot of positions off of this race start, and the medium runners will just be looking to not lose that much time, maybe let a couple of cars through to make sure that they are on the fastest possible strategy, which will end up helping them at the end of the race, because obviously they get to save a set of soft compound tires for the end of the Grand Prix. But the drivers are now lining up on the grid and getting ready for a race start. And you can see overcast conditions, so it's going to be a little colder, so maybe a couple of drivers will be starting on slightly colder tires, but I don't think anyone on the soft compounded tires will be struggling with that all too much, as the softs are very easy to get the heat into. And you can see Lukey and Futile Rydog now lining their Haas and Williams onto the grid. Lukey struggling with placing his car there. Gets disqualified from the session. We'll be starting slightly further back, but we have now got 5 red lights. They're gone. We're away. What kind of start is it for our pole man of J. Luke? It does look like a good one up against the Ferrari of Speed Kai, who's already lost a position off of the race start, with Axok looking to the outside coming into turn 1. He gets that move done on the Ferrari and moves himself up into P2. That's an error in the background for the Alfa Romeo of P1 Peru, who drops down to P18. And already we see a virtual safety car after just a few corners of racing, not even a few laps, a few turns of racing. P1 Peru had a spin that has triggered the virtual safety car to be deployed, and the drivers are going to neutralize the race now and slow down quite a bit. You can see Casper getting really aggressive there. He's obviously on the softs. He's going to try and get the best restart possible to hopefully find a way past the Ferrari driver of Speed Kai. But off of that race start, you can see Axok finds his way into P2, and it's a good start for him. Casper also finding 2 positions of that race start, moving from P6 to P4. The virtual safety car restart is now underway, and we're back to green flag running, and you can see Casper is going to be putting a lot of pressure under the Ferrari of Speed Kai, and you can see there are very close gaps in the midfield, one of which is Jamie Met and Futile Rydog. Futile Rydog, who started P17, is now all the way up into P12 after overtaking Jamie Met into the spoon curve coming out of turn 12. So a good job from the Haas driver. He's making up plenty of positions off of this race start. Another driver who's looking to make up positions is Lukey. Started from the back of the grid, is in P11 and looking to take P10. He dives down the inside into the final chicane, and Gazzaman conceding the position there. He doesn't want to battle too hard with the Williams driver, who now finds himself on the back of his teammate, who's currently on the medium compound of tyres. Delta Hunter is in P7 on the medium compound of tyres and struggling to stay within a 1 second gap of the drivers ahead. Evil Dragon and P1 Peru both making unscheduled pit stops there, as Gazman is struggling to defend from Futile Rydog behind. Futile Rydog and Lukey have been pushing at the absolute hardest for that opening lap, and well, it shows. Lukey started P18, finds himself in a points-paying position, and will be looking to overtake his teammate as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, up front, J-Luke maintains the lead on the medium compounded tyres, with Axok trying to put him under pressure. Lukey is now actually making a move into the turn 11 there, and gets past his teammate nice and easily, who is on the medium compound of tyres, and he finds himself in P9 after starting P18, so he's going to be on an absolute charge for the rest of this Grand Prix. But J-Luke maintains the lead after starting on the medium compounded tyres. How do you think that's going to help him in the battle against Axok and Speed Kai for this race win?
Well, Lukey's made a tremendous start from the back of the grid, it has to be said. He's got a couple of seconds to make up, as we've got a yellow flag in Sector 2. I wonder if that's the Haas of Futile that's gone for a spin. And Axok has disconnected, so Axok will be dropping down the field as the AI takes control of his car. He'll definitely not be going at the same pace as what he would have been, but I just hope he gets back in time. So that's a That's a bad dent there for Axlock, as we've got an incident in sector 3. Who's that that's gone around? I think that's Futel has gone for a spin again. Going on to what I was saying about Evil Dragon in Peru, the two tangled going in before they got to turn 1 on the opening lap, hence why both of them came into the pits for new nose cones. Going back to what I was saying about Lukey, in terms of making his way through the field, this is playing out very nicely for his strategy. So he just wants to get by Kamke Mom, who I don't think will be in his race, if I'm honest with you. We've got another yellow flag. I wonder who that's Futel again, isn't it? So, yes, Futel having another tough time of it. He gets going again, though, so hopefully he'll keep his focus on track. And Lukey nearly dropping it on the exit of Degna 2, nearly dropped it into the wall there as he continues on. And he's closing in on the pack that's ahead of him. So this is playing very nicely into his hands and helping his race. Remember, the drivers do have to stop twice in this one. Now, whatever compounds they go for, that's their choice, but they must make at least 2 pit stops. Otherwise, it will be a disqualification. So coming down the back straight, you can see Axlock is going backwards. I'm hoping it won't be too long before he gets back in. And Futel having his own melody still, coming out of Degna 2. So Delta Hunter gets past Axlock. Kamke Mum will follow suit, and then shortly it should be Lukey, unless Axlock can get back to the lobby as soon as possible. The drivers start their 3rd lap, or 4th lap now, I should say. So DRS will be active as we watch Speakai making a move on J-Luke as they come towards the first turn, and Speakai takes the lead of the race. J-Luke didn't fight it that much. He perhaps didn't feel like he wanted to. He'll now be behind Speakai. Speakai won't have DRS next time round. There is only one DRS zone on this circuit. That's on the pit straight. So the drivers make their way through. The S's, Casper, who's having a great race so far, up to 3rd from where he was on the grid. I'm just trying to find where he started. He started 6th on the grid and he's up to 3rd place. So Casper having a better time of it today than he was so last week, as we've got a spinner at sector 3, Peru, having yet another spin, unfortunately, so he's got a lot of work to do. And Futel continuing to spin round in the Haas. Now, if he keeps on doing this, I wonder if the stewards may speak to him after the race, because there are rules when it comes to driving standards for constantly spinning around on circuit. But J. Luke has got past Axlocks now, and he's up into P7. I think Kamke Mum went for a spin, actually, thinking it, or did he come into the pits at the end of the previous lap? I think he came into the pits, actually. So he's gone into the medium straight away, and he's got track position. So that's a nice time to take that pit stop. But can he go far enough on the mediums before he goes back onto a set of softs later on? Futel in the pits now, and he's being penalised for spinning in the pit lane, and that's the end of his race. And I'm not at all surprised. So Futel becomes the first retirement of this Japanese Grand Prix. Nothing dramatic apart from his spins that has led to his retirement, but at least he's not retired out on circuit.
Yeah, a shame to see from Rydog, who obviously had that amazing start after starting P17, found himself in the top 10. But yeah, just had that one spin, the tyres overheated, and he could not keep control of his car. And that is why he found himself retired from the session, which is the same you see. But you can see that is the Alpine driver of Aero Specialist, I think, getting past Gazman there with the Ghost Axlox's Ghost car getting in the way there, getting a bit confused. And I don't think Axlock can actually get back into the session, because obviously with cross-play enabled, you need an invite from an EA friend. And I don't think anyone in the lobby, apart from Lukey, who is currently trying to drive his own race, actually has him friended on the EA friend thing for the crossplay. So that's a shame to see, and I think that is actually the end of Axlox's race. So yeah, I don't think he actually has a way to get back into the lobby. So that's a real shame to see. You know, just having those technical difficulties that prevent you from getting a great result, which he was on for. He was in P2, he was looking to challenge with J. Luke for the race win, but yeah, just his technology letting him down there. And I think that is going to be the end of the Red Bull Drivers Grand Prix. So a real shame to see there. But in his woes, the race continues on with Speed Kai, after taking the lead over J. Luke. He's been pushing on with the ERS levels, and he's actually got himself a comfortable lead over the Alpine driver, who is now going to be under pressure from the AlphaTauri of Casper on the soft compounded tyres. You can see a couple of drivers have been boxing. Speed Josh, Colin R. Mason, Cam K have all come into the pit lane after starting on the soft compound tyres for a fresh set of mediums. And you can see Colin R. Mason relative to Speed Josh, he's coming out of the pit lane now. The Ferrari has the Mercedes of Cam K just behind him, and Speed Josh has come out quite a few seconds behind the Alfa Romeo of Colin R. Mason. So doesn't find them in a great position as of right now, but he'll be looking to push on and possibly even help Cam K to use a little bit of DRS to catch up to the drivers ahead. Waitsy now gets back ahead of Lukey, the two Williams battling it out between each other, and obviously Waitsy on the medium compound tyres, they are really starting to come into play here. The softs starting to wear just a little bit, and that is a good indication of the wear. If you see on the right hand side of Lukey's car, that line that is forming on his soft compound tyres really shows how much the softs are wearing. So the likes of Casper, Lukey, Aero Specialist, Gazman, well, not Axlock because obviously he's no longer in the session, but all the soft compound tyre runners have to come into the pit lane soon now for the medium compound tyres, and the softs really did not last long, only about 6 laps at most, and well, on this 6th lap they've really lost a lot of grip relative to the medium compound of tyres. But Casper is sticking it out on those softs. Obviously, he's keeping within DRS of the Alpine driver of J-Luke. So if he's able to stay within that DRS, then there's not really any point in boxing. So he can stretch these softs for as long as he possibly can. And then once he comes into the pit lane for a medium compounded tyre, he will obviously have fresher tyres than the rest of the grid. But Axlock actually finds a way back into the lobby, thankfully. So obviously someone was able to invite him. Maybe Lukey, when he came into the pit lane, was actually able to invite Axlock. But the only problem is that is terrible timing for the Red Bull driver, because his AI car actually came into the pit lane for a set of hard compound tyres. So Axlock is just going to have to stick it out on the hard compounded tyres and then maybe make a switch to softs or mediums at the end of the race. But it's good to see him back in the Grand Prix. He does find himself behind Lukey though, who was battling for around P8 or 7, I think it was, before everyone came in for their pit stops. But if you look at the gaps now, not a lot of people within DRS of each other. They're all just trying to settle into the race. Obviously a lot of drivers coming out on fresh sets of medium compound tyres. But at this stage of the race now, how do you think the strategies are going to play out? Obviously, we have Speed Kai and J-Luke leading the way on 7-lap old medium compound tyres. But the likes of Speed Josh and Colin R. Mason have not only got fresh medium compound tyres, but they also have clean air ahead of them to push as hard as they like. So how do you think that's going to affect the top runners?
Well, there's definitely no doubt. So Josh can afford to really push these medium compounds. Same with Colin as well. So they are definitely in the fight for the race victory. There's no question about that. It's vitally important that Mason can keep hold of track position. But the bad news for him is Casper has just made his stop. He was on the soft compound. He's got out ahead of him. So that has played into Casper's hands incredibly there. He's got 3 seconds to make on Alls ahead. So Casper's got time to get some temperature into those tyres before he starts making up some ground. He's going to have to hope the likes of Alls and Jordan are pitting in soon, so he's not going to be held up behind them in his quest to take the lead from Speed Kai and J-Luke, who haven't pitted yet. But remember, Speed Kai and J-Luke are on the medium compound. They started the race on that compound, so the plan could be for them is to be on the soft compound for the remaining 2 stints of this race to maximise their chances of the race victory. But timing of being on them is absolutely crucial, because the thing is, you want to make sure you get all of the benefit of those sets of tyres before they fall off the cliff. You do not want to be on them when they fall off the cliff, because the loss in lap time during the course of a single lap alone is absolutely huge. So it's vitally important that Speed Kai and J-Luke look after their mediums before they switch over onto the softs. So Casper is definitely in play to win this race. We haven't spoken much about Casper last week, did we? He wasn't in the frame for victory. His highest finish being 10th in Portugal, 12th place finish in China the week before. So out of absolutely nowhere, Casper is in the fight for the race victory. This is playing very much, as I've said before, into his hands. He's closing in on Ols. a couple of seconds to make up still, so he's got time to make up that ground. But he's going to be in a heap of traffic shortly, I would say, as Josh posts a new fastest lap. As I've mentioned, if you finish inside the top 10 and you have the fastest lap, you would get that point. If you finish outside the top 10 and you have the fastest lap out of those outside the top 10, you would also get the fastest lap. The top 12 score points, 20 points for the race winner, 17 for second, 14 for third, as far as I can remember correctly, and you get 1 point for finishing 12th. So there's always something up for grabs when it comes to racing in One Hub Racing. So there's a long way to go in this championship as well. Round 3 out of 10. This is the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, so we've got 7 more rounds to go and plenty at stake. And with Axlock down in 15th, he went into this round as the championship leader. Well, I don't think he's going to be leading the championship by the time this race is over, as Casper makes a move on Ols for a crucial overtake coming out of the hairpin, and he's got the move completed before they get to Spoon Curve. So Casper on track up into 7th place. The good news for him is that the next car ahead of him is his teammate Jordan, who I don't think will pull up too much of a fight and will allow his teammate to go through.
Yeah, I think he definitely will. Casper obviously being in the fight for the win. And a good move from Casper there. Very cheeky from him to actually look to the inside line into turn 11. But a lot of grip with those new tyres, and he was able to get that move done. But further back, Lukey in the Williams has had a spin coming through turn 13 and 14, and he finds himself down in P15 and under pressure from the Mercedes of Evil Dragon now. As they come into 130R, they will be side by side. Evil Dragon had nowhere to go, had to back out of that move, and is now down in P16 outside of the DRS of Lukey ahead of him. But a crucial mistake there from Lukey, who was actually looking quite decent in this race to score some points. But another man who's made a mistake, it's Jamie Met on the exit of turn 4, I think that is. Or no, turn 5, on the exit of turn 5, he's had a spin, obviously has used a little bit too much curve, or maybe being a bit too aggressive with the throttle, but whatever's happened, he's got really overheated tyres, and he's just tried to push them too hard, too early, and he has another spin at turn 7, and this has lost him a lot of lap time, and quite a few positions too, as ERT Jordan, who he was battling before the pit stops, is now now ahead of him, and a pit stop ahead as well. Jamie Met having another spin into the first Egna, and Jamie Met is just really struggling on these medium compound tyres, and he just keeps going round and round. Those tyres must be absolutely overcooked, and I think his best play now is just to take it nice and easy, cool down those tyres before he starts pushing again. But a shame to see, and as he's having a spin, so is P1 Peru, who has a spin there on the second Egna, the exit of turn 9 that is, and he loses quite a bit of time currently in P17 and really struggling at this Japanese circuit. But you can see a couple of drivers coming into the pit lane now. Delta Hunter is coming out of the boxes, and he is come out behind Colin Mason, but crucially ahead of Speed Josh. Obviously he will have colder medium compound tyres, so this is an opportunity for Speed Josh to possibly make the move on the Red Bull driver, and it would be quite crucial if he was able to do so. You can see the dirty air really affecting him through the long right-hander of turn 6. But I think Delta Hunter by now, after going through the S section of the first sector, gets plenty of heat into the medium compound tyres, and he will be back up to speed now and looking to get within the DRS of Colin Mason ahead of him. Meanwhile, Speed Kai continuing to extend the gap between himself and J-Luke, currently at 1.8 seconds between the Ferrari and the Alpine. And then the closest driver behind is Waitsy, who was 13.9 seconds off of the top two. And Waitsy quite a bit off that battle. But crucially, if we take a look at the gap to the leader here, 22.3 seconds separate Speed Kai and Casper. So I think if Speed Kai does decide to box anytime soon, he will be coming out behind Casper, but just about ahead of Colin Mason possibly. So Waitsy now comes into the pit lane. We'll be able to see where he comes out, as this is his first pit stop of the Grand Prix. Most drivers have made their first stop, with obviously the exception of Speed Kai and J-Luke, who are yet to make a stop in this Grand Prix, currently on 11 lap old medium compound tyres. So they really need to make sure that they push these tires to the absolute limit because they must be thinking about boxing soon. But obviously, with this two-stop rule, they've taken the mediums 11 laps, and there's only 15 laps to go. So what do you think their best strategy would be from here?
I think that they will have to try and do another lap if they can, so that if they get to that 13, they've got 14 more laps to do in this race, which means 7 laps on each set of the soft compounds. So I think this is playing nicely into Speak Eye and J Luke's hands. I think they're just trying to run their own races at the moment, trying to get as many points as possible, as it will come crucial at the end of the season as J Mamet comes in to get rid of those medium combos. They've gone out on another set of mediums, which is interesting, but I suppose he needs to try and make sure he gets as far as he can on those mediums before he decides to put these softs on at the end. He's probably thinking about the fastest lap right at the end because he's well out of touch with the rest of the pack. As Speakai comes into the pits, I should say, J Luke stays out in the Alpine and does another lap. So Speakai goes onto a set of softs. He should come out ahead of Casper. So Speakai will have a lot of clear track ahead of him. So he's got an opportunity here to look after his softs without battling with any drivers on track. Casper's just coming down the pit straight. Is Speakai going to get out ahead of him, though? I don't think he is, to be honest with you. Stelton sets a new fastest lap. Speakai just about stays ahead as Casper runs wide. They go side by side into turn 2. Casper round the outside. Is he going to pull up the pass into the S's? The answer is yes, he does. As Speakai nearly went out wide there, and Casper gets through and up into second place. Speakai had to be kind there and let him through. Otherwise, there would have been contact, and the pair of them would have been off the road. Casper, as brave as you like, pulling off an absolutely brilliant overtake into a section where you wouldn't expect too many overtakes at, but he made that move absolutely work. So Casper very much in play for the race victory. What will J Luke do in response to that? Because if he pits now, Casper will be taking the lead of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, very interesting stuff there. Casper able to make the move, taking advantage of Speakai while he has cold soft compound tyres, as Speakai falls down to P3 now. But Speakai, it'll be interesting to see how his strategy plays out. Does he go for the double soft gamble, or obviously he was very comfortable on the medium compound tyres towards the start of the race, pulled out a nice gap on J Luke early on, so he could possibly be looking to go mediums to the end. We'll have to see how it plays out. J Luke coming in for the soft compound tyres as well. Obviously we saw at the start of the race the softs only really lasting about 6 laps, so if these drivers decide to go for a double soft stint, it's really going to hurt them towards the end of the race. But if they decide to go on mediums, it could work out for them. Meanwhile, Speakai taking advantage of the soft compound tyres while he has them, has a look to the outside coming into turn 1, doesn't have the grip to go around the outside of Casper there. An ambitious move, but he decides to back out of it for now. J Luke currently 2.5 seconds off of this battle ahead of him, and is actually under pressure from the likes of Colin R. Mason and Delta Hunter, who are both on the medium compound of tyre. Delta Hunter very fresh mediums compared to Colin R. Mason, so we could see a battle emerge between those three, but I expect J Luke to find some decent pace now once he gets those tyres up to temperature, and will be looking to compete with Speakai and Casper. It's a massive battle going on. Speakai tried to look to the inside there. Casper defending his line very heavily, went deep into turn 11. Speakai looked for the switchback, can't find it just yet. We're coming into the spoon curve now, and Speakai has been following Casper very, very closely for the last couple of turns now. Out of turn 14, what kind of grip does he have on the exit of this particular turn? It looks like good grip. He uses the slipstream and the ERS to his advantage, and he's looking to find his way past the AlphaTauri of Casper, and he does so. Moves himself up into P1. Casper not going down without a fight. He had a look to the inside there, but an ambitious little look there. He was never going to commit to that one. He has to fall down to P2 for now, and Speakai, his job is to pull away from Casper, break that DRS, and try to make the biggest gap possible. But Casper is possibly looking to fight back. He had a tiny bit of a look down the inside there, but simply the medium compound tyres do not have the grip to compete with the softs. You can see through the S's the amount of grip that Spikai has relative to Casper. Although Casper is doing a decent job with the mediums, with the dirty air, he's still keeping up a decent pace relative to the Ferrari. 6/10 separate the top two, and it is very, very close between them. But I think Casper is going to start to lose a little bit of time to the Ferrari of Spikai ahead of him. Meanwhile, J-Luke is pushing on nice and hard. He's broken the DRS to Colin R. Mason behind him, and he is looking to push on and catch up to Casper, as it looks like Spikai and J-Luke are going to have a lot of pace for the rest of this Grand Prix. Just the question is, are they going to go for the double soft stint? Are they going to go to the mediums for the end of the Grand Prix? It'll be difficult to call, but whatever strategy they choose, they'll be looking to push these soft compound tyres to the absolute limit. Casper has now officially lost the DRS to Spikai ahead of him. 1 second separates them as they come into the final chicane. Although, can he possibly get into that 1 second before the detection point? I don't think he did. And as he comes out of turn 18 and onto the main pit straight, he does not have DRS. So he'll be losing quite a bit of time. Colin R. Mason comes into the pit lane for the final time in this Grand Prix. A soft medium strategy for the Alfa Romeo driver, as he puts on another set of medium compound tyres, which will take him to the end of the Grand Prix. So he's going for a bit of an undercut relative to everyone else. This now gives Delta Hunter the advantage of clean air, which he's going to use to possibly start pushing as hard as he can. I think he'll be stretching these mediums until about lap 22, where he'll be able to box for a fresh set of soft compound tyres, which should easily last the 5 laps until the end of the Grand Prix. But Delta Hunter, after qualifying P8 and having quite a weak qualifying session, finds himself up into the net top 5. So Delta Hunter is on quite a nice recovery drive here. He might not be competing for the race win or a podium in this Grand Prix, but I think he could definitely still score himself some decent points in this race.
A podium finish is definitely on for Delta Hunter. He's now 5 seconds off the race lead. If he continues pumping in these lap times, if you look at the sort of tyre state that he'll be on in comparison to Spikai and J-Luke, I would say that he's on about the same, because if the soft compound will wear away a lot quicker than the mediums. So I would expect Delta Hunter to start closing in the gap, as J-Luke is now within DRS range to have a go on Casper. So can he maybe pull off this move on him? Just looking at his ERS, and I think he's got round about the same as Casper. Casper won't have DRS, J-Luke will do, but J-Luke is too far back to have a go as Josh comes into the pits for his last pit stop. So I would say this is going to be the medium compound going on for him, and indeed it is. We saw Colin come into the pits for his final stop, and he's gone onto a set of mediums, so he needs to make light work of this as Aero Specialist comes in and does the same. Axel will move up into 6th position. He's got one more stop to make though, so I think he may decide to come in towards the end for the soft compound. So Speed Josh comes out in 9th, Aero Specialist 10th. Jordan will go in front of Aero Specialist. So Colin's got in front of Josh now. So Mason is in front of Josh. It's got a bit of ground to make up on Gazzaman. So if Colin can pull out these blinder of lap times, and just looking at his lap time on the previous lap for Colin, if I can find it somewhere, I think it was a 1:32.8 that he had posted. So he is definitely pulling out all the stops here and started closing and get actually a good points finish out of this and continue his consistent start to the season, as J-Luke continues to wheel in the AlphaTauri of Casper. But as he's getting closer, he'll be in that turbulent air, which will lose him downforce through the corners, which won't help him. But I think he's closer this time in comparison to what it was the previous lap. So he may decide to pull. And now Spikai lost connection, twisting the tail. Spikai, the race leader, has lost connection.
And that is going to be an absolutely crucial point in this Grand Prix. Spikai, it's such a shame when a driver disconnects, as he was on for such a great result. He was pulling away from the 2 drivers behind, and he was on for a race win at this Japanese circuit. But technology getting the better of him there, and sadly a disconnect. That is absolutely brutal to see. And you can see Casper is just going to absolutely cruise by him now. But that is such a shame to see from a driver who was on form and looking to win the Japanese Grand Prix now falls down to P3 and is going to continue to lose time. But thankfully, Luki pausing the game there and actually inviting him back into the lobby. So Speed Kai, he's lost his gap, he's lost his positions, but he still has a chance in this race. He is still in this race. He's going to be able to take control of his car. He is going to lose the DRS to the top two, but I'm sure he'll just be thankful that he is back into the race and competing for the race win once again. But 1.4 seconds off of the top two. He's got quite the gap to make up now, and he's going to have to push his car to the absolute limit. That is the point where he's just rejoined the session. Speed Kai back into control of his car, but at 1.8 seconds is the gap between himself and J-Luke. But surprisingly, J-Luke hasn't been able to find a way past the medium runner of Casper, who finally decides to come into the pit lane. Casper was losing J-Luke a lot of time, and that helped out Speed Kai quite a bit, who boxes now for a fresh set of medium compound tires. No, it's soft compound tires. He's come in for a set of soft compound tires at the end of lap 18, and he's going to have to stretch this stint for about 9 laps, I should say. We saw the mediums die off at about 5 laps, or the softs, I should say, die off after about 5 laps, but Speed Kai is going for a massive risk here. After disconnecting from the session, losing 2 positions, he has decided to box for the soft compounded tires, and I do not see this strategy working out for him, but no matter what, he will be pushing to the absolute limit, trying to find as much time as possible, and he's going for a risky strategy after an unfortunate disconnect there. So we'll have to see if that works out for him. He's currently behind Colin Mason, who has made his final stop. So Colin Mason is technically in a prime position for a podium in this Grand Prix, as I think Speed Kai, his tyres are going to die off towards the end of the race, which will allow Colin Mason to hopefully battle with the Ferrari. But yeah, it's interesting. This race is really starting to unfold here. Axlock is trying to battle with Waitsy now. He's on a bit of a recovery drive after dropping all the way from P2 all the way down to P12 after disconnecting from the session. He is back. He's on the hard compounded tires after his AI boxed for him. And he will be boxing soon enough for either the mediums or the soft compounded tires. One man who is boxing for another set of soft compound tires, J-Luke. This is really surprising to see. J-Luke has reacted to Speed Kai there, and he's come into the pit lane for another set of soft compound tires. You saw they took those softs for about 6 laps each before coming into the pit lane for another set of soft compound tires. So it's really looking unlikely that they'll have any pace at all towards the end of the Grand Prix. So you can see J-Luke, as he comes out of the pit lane, he is 2 seconds ahead of the Ferrari of Speed Kai, and actually 1 second behind the AlphaTauri of Casper. So do not count out Casper for this race win. He has the medium compound tires, which will give him better grip at the end of the race, but for now he's really going to struggle relative to the Alpine and the Ferrari, who are both gunning it for the race win in this round 3. So we'll have to see. J-Luke, as he gets his tires up to temperature, he's lost the DRS to Casper, and he's got Speed Kai in his DRS now. Colin Mason is trying his best to stay within the DRS of the Ferrari ahead of him to gain as much time as possible, as he is still in for a good chance at a podium at this Japanese circuit, and he's got plenty of ERS to push with. You can see using it all the way down this straight in the hopes of getting DRS for the pit straight, but the grip between the mediums and softs is really substantial and very noticeable, as we saw Speed Kai gaining about 5/10 alone in that spoon curve. So Colin Mason, I think he's just going to have to play it safe for now, just keep pushing, keep a consistent pace before he really starts to use the ERS and try to catch up to the soft runners. But this now puts Casper in a perfect position, as we see the Williams of Waitsy come into the pit lane for a fresh set of soft compound tires. The 2 Red Bulls lead 1 and 2, but still have 1 more stop to go in this Grand Prix. And well, if they're leaving at this rate, I think it's likely that they're going to go onto the soft compound of tires. But Casper currently a net P1 with J-Luke 7/10 behind, and Speed Kai struggling to stay within the DRS of the top, the net top 2. You can see a snap of oversteer on the exit of turn 4 there. But how do you think this is going to play out? Do you think those soft compound tires are actually going to hold on all the way to the end of the Grand Prix?
For J. Luke and Speakai, I would say yes. This is playing more into Delta Hunter's hands because he's still yet to make a pit stop, but he's now in prime position to go onto the soft compound now, so that he's going to have more of the benefit in the remaining laps than J. Luke and Speakai. Having said that, Delta Hunter will lose too much time in the pit lane. It'll be around about 25 seconds or so, at least. So I just don't think Delta Hunter's going to have enough time to catch up, but he'll give it a good old try by any stretch. If he comes in, then Axelot will probably take the lead. Having said that, it's the two Red Bulls are now 1 and 2. So will Delta Hunter pit in? He will do. So will Axelot decide to pit in as well? Given that he's just over 15 seconds behind, I would imagine he'll gamble and actually come in and get the softs on now, and he won't waste too much time having to wait behind his teammate.
Yeah, I think that's, well, never mind. That's definitely not the case. He stayed out there. And surprising to see from the Red Bull driver there. He's stayed out and he's actually decided he's going to leave it one more lap until coming onto the soft compounded tyres. Meanwhile, Delta Hunter comes out of the pit lane on the softs and he comes out ahead of Speed Josh, who he was originally battling along with Colin Mason. And I think he's actually got a great chance here up against Colin Mason, and he could possibly get himself a top 4 position in this Grand Prix, maybe even a podium. So his chances of a podium looking better and better by the lap. But Casper is able to actually hold on to this P2 position as he's got the DRS of Axok ahead of him. So Axok obviously lost a lot of time after that disconnect, and he finds himself just about ahead of Casper on the hard compounded tyres, although he'll really be feeling the tyre wear now. And he's going to start to struggle at this stage. So I think this is definitely the lap that he has to box for the soft compound tyres if he wants to get the maximum advantage possible. So I think we've definitely seen him come into the pit lane, but the effects of this means that Casper has the power of the DRS and has been able to defend from the likes of the Alpine of Lukey behind him, who's got a bit of overspeed actually on this back straight, getting very close coming into 130R. He could even look for a move coming into the final chicane. That's exactly what he's going to do around the outside into the chicane. Has the inside line for turn 17, the outside for turn 18. Axok comes into the pit lane, but J-Luke has taken the lead of this Grand Prix and has the power of the DRS to maintain it on the run down into turn 1. Great move there from J-Luke. Had to be very confident in the grip on his soft compounded tyres, but it has worked out for him very nicely. Delta Hunter is now in the DRS of Colin R. Mason, and I think this race is really going to start to kick off now.
Yeah, it was crucial that J-Luke got that move done, because now he's in prime position to defend from Casper, who's going to have more tyre life than he will do in the remaining few laps. We've just got 5 laps to go now in this Japanese Grand Prix. J-Link running wide there. He's got to be careful with track limits. I think what's great so far is that we've not seen too many track limit penalties being dished out, as that would have diluted the race a little bit, but thankfully that hasn't been the case today. So this is a genuine fight for the race victory. Will it be J-Luke? Will it be Casper? Or will it be Speakai coming away with the honours here at Suzuka? The battle is very much on between these three, and who knows, if they start fighting with each other, the likes of Colin and Delta Hunter will get in on the act. In fact, there's a battle going on between Colin and Delta Hunter for 4th position. So whilst we've got a battle for the race victory, the battle for 4th place is still on. This is crucial for Delta Hunter's championship house. I know it's still very early on in the season, but it looks though, given his pace and potential, it looks like he's going to be there. He goes right round the outside. Look at that! Absolutely remarkable stuff from Delta Hunter, right round the outside of Colin. That was Fernando Alonso-esque on Michael Schumacher back in 2005. That was picturesque, overtaking gold dust. That was spectacular from Delta Hunter, and if that helps him win the World Championship later on in the season, well, my goodness me, we'll look back on this as one of the best overtaking manoeuvres I've ever seen in any form of league racing. That was sensational stuff.
It took a lot of confidence there to go around the outside of the flat-out 8th gear turn of 130R, and he really had to put all of the confidence into the softs, into the car, make sure that he had the pitch-perfect line to make that move work, and that's exactly what he does. He finds himself in P4 and in the battle for a podium position in this Grand Prix. He's currently on the back of Speed Kai, who has 3 lap older soft compound tyres. Delta Hunter is going to have a massive advantage over the top 3, and he is in a prime position to get some decent points, possibly going to show us how he is back on form now here in Japan after having a bit of an off day back in Portugal. But we'll have to see. J-Luke is 6/10 behind the back of Casper. 4 lap old soft compound tyres. They're in that phase now. They still have a decent amount of grip, but you can see that bit of graining there on the front right. They're going to lose that little bit of grip, and Speed Kai is experiencing it a little bit more. He's got 5 lap old tyres compared to J-Luke's 4. So he's actually lost the DRS to the top 2. So I predicted that this double soft stint wasn't going to work out, and I don't think it will. J-Luke no longer has the grip to compete with Casper. Speed Kai no longer has the grip to keep up with the DRS of the top 2. You can see how little speed he's able to carry into the first turn, and this is now put Delta Hunter into the prime position to make some overtakes here. He is in the DRS of Speed Kai. He has the better tyres, he has a superior grip, but does he have the confidence and the guile to go for the move and get himself up into P3? 6/10 separate P4 and P3, but we'll have to see. Can he possibly get a podium in this Grand Prix? I'm sure he'd love the taste of champagne after missing out on it last week. 4/10 is the gap between Speed Kai and Delta Hunter. And while Delta Hunter is pushing as hard as he can to try and catch up with the Ferrari, Casper is slowly pulling out a bigger and bigger lead on the likes of J-Luke. 1.3 seconds separate the top 2, and Casper, after scoring a P12 and a P10, is looking to score a P1 and be the 3rd race winner this season in the P2 tier. Meanwhile, Delta Hunter, using his ERS, he's going to make another move on the run into 130R, and he makes another move. He moves himself up into P3. Speed Kai isn't going to go down without a fight, but you can see how little grip he has in these 6 lap old soft compound tires. Delta Hunter has so much more. Even a slap of oversteer on the exit of turn 18, and Delta Hunter moves himself up into the podium positions. It is now the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix, and 1.9 seconds separate the Red Bull and the Alpine. There is not much between them, and for 2 more laps, Delta Hunter is going to be pushing as hard as he can. He's made some brilliant moves up until this point. He just has to make 1 more to get P2 in this Grand Prix. Speed Josh, the Ferrari, actually battling it out with Colin R. Mason too, who is trying to catch up to the back of Speed Kai. There's a lot going on in these final 2 laps, and it is looking more and more likely that Delta Hunter will actually be able to catch up to the back of J-Luke as he now finds himself within DRS of the Alpine ahead of him. It's really going to start to get close down these final few stages.
The Delta Hunter within a second of J-Luke. There's no way I don't think Delta Hunter's going to go for the victory, but I'm sure he'll have taken 2nd place at the beginning of this race, given where he had started. So it's very much within his grasp, I would say, for Delta Hunter. You can see the tyre life he has with the softs in comparison to J-Luke. J-Luke is falling back into the clutches of him now. He's dropped away from Casper. I would say Casper can maybe afford a track limits penalty and still win this race because he's got better tyres than what J-Luke has, although he won't try and go for a track limits penalty as that's too risky. But I'm sure you can see where we're coming from as Evil Dragon gets a track limits penalty. Not that it's very significant at this stage of the race anyway. He's well down the order. And we're now on the final lap of this race. Is Delta Hunter going to take 2nd place from J-Luke as they come down the pit straight towards the first turn for the last time? He doesn't go for it there. That's his last chance with DRS gone. So he'll have to pull off a move as Colin gets past Speed Kai. So Colin is up into 5th place as Speed Kai runs wide and allows his teammate through. Does not hold him up. So Speed Kai wisely stays out of the way of Josh as he looks to take that 4th position away from Colin as Aero Specialist gets back in front of Cam Kamon. He had a spin a few laps ago. So Aero Specialist back into P7 as Speed Kai drops further back from his teammate as Colin looks to keep hold of his 4th place as we watch Delta Hunter looking to make a move on J-Luke as they come towards the hairpin for the last time. Does he go for it here? Decides not to. Will he decide to pull off a similar move to what he did on Speed Kai? a lap or so ago, I think it was Speakai, it might have been Colin or someone like that. I think it was Colin who pulled off that move at 130R. It was a brilliant move. I would absolutely love it if he could pull that move off again, this time on J-League for second place. He needs to get good traction and good drive coming out of the spoon curve. He does so. I think this is going to be an easy move because as you can see, J-League is continuing to harvest energy. You can tell by the flashing red light on the back of his car. Delta Hunter has a little bit more ERS in store. He pulls off and gets a move done for second place. But we go back to the race leader of Casper in the AlphaTauri from 6th on the grid. He is going to pull himself into championship contention. Casper wins the Japanese Grand Prix in one hub race in the P2 tier. Delta Hunter from 8th place on the grid comes home to finish in 2nd position. And what a drive also from Colin to get himself onto the podium to bring himself also into championship contention. Josh comes home in 4th place. He got by Luke also on the last lap. Luke down to 5th place, would you believe it? He lost 2 positions in the final 3 corners of that last lap. He had a nightmare. So the timing of the soft stint did not pay off for him. Speakai in 6th place, just behind him. Aerospecialist in 7th place, so 2 Alpines in the top 7. Cam K Mum in 8th, Waitsy 9th, Gazaman in 10th place. The drivers with the fastest lap. Axlot gets the fastest lap outside the top 10, so that's a point for him. The driver inside the top 10 that would get the fastest lap, that is currently Speakai. So that's a championship point going to him, as well as the points for 6th place. Jordan comes home 11th, Axot 12th, so Axot comes away with 2 points at least. Ols 13th, Peru 14th ahead of Evil Dragon and Lukey, who had a nightmare of a race today, unlike last week. Jamie Met, the last of the finishers in 17th place. Futel, the only driver to not finish. What a race, more. I couldn't have wished for a better one than that.
I mean, there was action from start to finish and a brilliant win from Casper, who chose the right strategy and he made it work for him, setting consistently quick lap times, kept him in P1, pulled out a gap to J-Luke, relieved the pressure and won the Grand Prix, and his first of the season, the 3rd different race winner in 3 rounds. A great drive from Casper. And then obviously Delta Hunter finds his way back onto the podium after having a little bit of a weaker performance last time out. He gets the taste of champagne once again, and then the Alfa Romeo of Colin R. Mason, after getting 2 P5s, finds himself in P3 and on the podium for the first time in this season. And a good result for the Alfa Romeo driver, who's been ultra consistent this season. Been getting plenty of points for himself in these first 3 rounds. But once again, we see a Red Bull on the podium, as we have had for the past 2 rounds now. And a good job from Delta Hunter after qualifying P8, moving all the way up to P2. That is a great result for the Red Bull driver. You can see Speed Josh finishing P4. It was a bit risky going for that soft compound tire strategy. Actually, I think there's a bit of a mistake with the gaps there, because J-Luke is somehow 4 seconds behind Speed Josh. I'm not too sure how that happened, but he's P5, as it says on this. Speakai in P6 with Aero Specialist in P7. Kamke finished P8, Wait CP9, and Gazman rounds out the top 10 with Axok getting the overall fastest lap. But that was a great race from start to finish, and I personally really enjoyed that. You can see a surprising performance there. Aero Specialist moving all the way up from P16 to P7 there. So a good drive from him, and making plenty of overtakes to get his Alpine into that position. But I think we get to that stage now where we're going to talk about our driver of the day. Now, Tom, if you had to give just one of these 18 talented drivers the driver of the day, who would you have to give it to?
I'm probably going to snatch yours, to be honest, Mo, in case you are going for this driver. I'm going to go for Casper because he came out of absolutely nowhere today. He didn't quite have the pace last week in Portimao or in Shanghai, but all of a sudden he's turned up tonight with a brilliant car, brilliant pace, got the strategy absolutely spot on. The decision to go onto the medium tyre for the last stint absolutely paid dividends. We thought the soft would be the better option, depending on when the drivers would come in, but it actually wasn't. The medium compound was the better one in the long run. So very well done to Casper on that feature. He gets my driver of the day after a brilliant performance. And my question for him is, you made the strategy absolutely work for you today. You turned up like we never thought you would do. how did that victory come about to you, and did you practice a lot this week on the run up to it? That's my driver of the day and question for the driver for post race interview or the driver of the day press conference. Who would be your pick then, Mo? Who are you going for?
I mean, it's got to be a very, very difficult decision. A lot of drivers did a great job today. I have to give it to Gasper. He did an amazing job to get his first race win this season. But I've got to pick the P2 man of Delta Hunter. He had a weak qualifying session, but was able to bring it back. Ultra consistent pace, a great strategy that worked out perfectly for him. He used all three of his tires to the maximum advantage, and kept it consistent out of trouble, and was just able to take advantage of the drivers around him by just making those right choices on track. And I would have to say, coming into this round, did you feel you had the pace to keep up with the top guys, or did you feel like your strategy was really going to come into play? But yeah, that would be my question, because it did seem like his strategy really worked out quite well for him, as obviously having those fresher softs towards the end of the race really helped him out. So a great job from the Red Bull driver. But just before we end off the stream, I think there are two more sponsors that we have to mention, and one of which is GamerGoo. Now, GamerGoo sponsor One Hub Racing, and they make a great cream for your hands. You can apply it, and it will stop your hands from actually sweating that much. So any of you gamers who are going for a bit of a longer session and want to make sure your controller or your racing wheel doesn't get too sticky, well, GamerGoo is perfect for you. So you can make sure to go check them out. They have a link in the description, and definitely a good idea if you want to go for those longer gaming sessions. Another one of One Hub Racing sponsors and new to this season is Azatec Sim Sports. They sponsor the league by providing plenty of prizes, and one of which is for the driver who gets the most fastest laps and pole positions combined, actually gets a free set of 4 pedals. So they get quite a big reward for setting the fastest lap times possible in qualifying, but also the race too. So they provide all sorts of stuff from wheels to wheelbases to pedals too. And well, if you're in the market for possibly getting yourself a new wheel, then Aztec Sim Sports is a great place to go. And you can find them right with their link in the description. But that is going to be all for this third round of One Hub Racing's P2 tier. I hope you enjoyed what was an absolutely exciting Grand Prix, and an amazing one, to say the least. I'm sure we can expect more action like that next week, so make sure to tune in next week for round 4 of 10 as we start to enter the midway point of this season.